We also had a report coming in from CEI on the traffic, and I think that what we'll be doing tonight, and hope. Oh, okay. Before we start that, we just received. Yeah, did you get the BSC group transportation peer? Okay, that's the document I'm referring to. So one would think that the way we should approach that is for you to take us through that and answer some of the questions or points that were brought up in that particular report. As a highlight, and just to go over it, some of the things that I hope we'll cover tonight, of course, and this one, emergency access and easement from the Milford Fire Department, was not only one that came up in the CEI report, but it also came up with the town planner, town engineer's report, so that's something we need to look at. Some of the concerns were from Mike Dean, the intersection of Birch and Medway Road and Birch and Beaver. Again, he brought up the secondary emergency access point. Larry Duncan, the second drive for emergency access, so that seems to be the subject. The police chief deferred to the traffic studies that we'll be looking at. And as of this morning, there was no input. I had looked at all the information, but there was no input from the fire department, and our able secretary in the town council's office searched it through, and we did get a late letter from the fire department. Are you aware of what's said in that letter? Okay, so that'll be something else that we would have to address. Now, we are talking about traffic this evening, but feel free if there's anything else that you want to bring up, that would be fine. You know that we have another meeting scheduled for you that is going to address the Milford, the sewer and water issues. I think that's at our next meeting. But also, just coming into us as the board is the comprehensive environmental report from our peer review, and that's several pages long. Now, you might want to comment on it, but I think it's only fair to do two things. One, we'll probably send up a working meeting with myself and Jerry and you people, and we'll schedule that as we get to the end of the meeting. If there's something you want to comment on in there, that's fine, but realize none of the board members have had a chance or an opportunity to review that. So we could handle that at our next scheduled meeting. So, without any further talking, I'll let you take us through the traffic situation.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Lobiser, the owner of the project and president of 88 Corp. We do have Ron Mueller with us today, so he will be addressing the traffic, but I just wanted to start off the meeting by reading a short, quick summary on this project. So when we ended our last meeting, I actually touched on the fact that our project was different than most other 40Bs, and in particular, the other two projects currently in front of your board. For the record, I wanted to better explain what I meant by that, by different. I started this process by looking into why the previous 40B project at this site failed to get approval and what was the town actually looking for. The town planner and the town engineer at that time laid out the four main reasons for its failure. The first one was the previous project took away all of the industrial zone land. With our proposal, we have split the land in half to continue the industrial land off of Industrial Way. Two, the town and the fire department did not want the project's access to go through the fire station land, even though this property actually has the deeded right to do so. With our proposal, we move the main entrance to a new location away from the fire station and provided, as requested at our last hearing, an emergency egress through the fire station parking lot that is only to be used by emergency personnel if and when needed. Three, the existing sewer pump station needed to be upgraded. and the previous developer was unwilling to do that at his cost. With our proposal, we have agreed to upgrade the pump station to whatever degree is needed. 4, the town felt that the 300 units that were originally proposed for this project was far too much. With our proposal, we have eliminated the units that were proposed directly on Industrial Way, which actually dropped our number count to around 230 units at the time. We originally showed our project with 5 residential buildings, and each building was 4 stories. But after many work sessions with the town planner, town engineer, and various other town officials, we collectively decided to eliminate the 5th building and to remove the 4th floor from all buildings. This not only drastically dropped the unit count to our current 162 units, which is well below the density allowed in a 40B project, but also provided for a much better transition to the existing condo project that we do abut. This is important to note because this was all done before we ever filed our Pell application. As you discuss and ultimately vote on all 3 of these projects that are before this board, I urge you to take this information, our cooperation with the town officials, and the fact that both the town planner and the Board of Selectmen have actually submitted letters of support for this project to Mass Housing when we actually applied for our Pell. I do believe that this is the way that these projects should be presented to a town, and it's not with the throw at the wall and see what sticks method. That's what I had to say. So, with that, I'm going to leave it to Ron.
Does anybody have any questions on that from Mr. Lobuser? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Ron Mueller. I'm a principal with Ron Mueller and Associates and a registered professional traffic engineer in the Commonwealth. And I prepared the traffic study that was submitted to this board. I'm sure you're familiar with traffic studies and how these reports are generally structured, but essentially in a nutshell, what we do is we evaluate existing traffic conditions in the area around the project. We project traffic to a future design horizon, in this case a 7-year horizon consistent with state guidelines, and then project what those traffic conditions will be both with and without the project. And when we did that, what we found is there's a couple of problem locations both to the east and to the west of the site. At the Medway Street and Birch Street intersection, for example, the light that's there, there isn't enough green time right now. If you're heading westbound on 109 on Medway Street, making a left turn into Birch Street, there isn't, or at least won't be in the future, enough green time to allow you to make that movement and still operate within acceptable levels. In other words, what's going to happen is people start going to back up, and those delays will then also affect through traffic trying to get through the intersection. What I've recommended is that, because this project will add to that movement, that this project change the signal timing at that intersection to give more green time to that movement. There's a protected left turn movement there that will alleviate those constraints, in fact, and allow it to operate better than it does today. There's enough green time on the through movements to handle that traffic, so it's very easy to take away some of that green time and allocate it to the left turn movement. And Kevin has agreed to make those changes.
Now, just one question on that. Who makes the decision to change the lighting timing there? Is that with the DEP? Not the...
It's not a state highway.
Okay.
So it's locally controlled.
Okay.
So it'll be your engineering department. We'll work with them. We'll prepare plans, signal plans to change that timing. That'll get approved through your engineering department. And then we'll actually physically go out there, have a signal contract, and make the changes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The other is on the other end of Birch Street at the intersection with Beaver Street. I'm sure you're familiar with that intersection, that you have that one-way section. Beaver Street North is one-way northbound from there. And you only have a single lane approach on Birch Street approaching that. There's a very, very heavy volume of right-turning traffic from Birch onto Beaver. Not so much left-turning traffic. But anytime you do have 1 or 2 cars waiting to make a left turn, they start backing up traffic behind them because all of the right turning traffic can't get there anymore. Again, same thing, this project will add predominantly to the left turn movement. So what I've recommended is that Birch Street be widened, physically widen the road to provide a two-lane approach to Beaver Street. That will allow right turning traffic to get past by any vehicles that are waiting to make a left turn, and in fact improve the level of service to better than what it is today. And again, Kevin has agreed to make those changes. So that, in a nutshell, is the summary of the traffic study and its impacts. I should also mention that the site driveway intersection with Birch Street operates at acceptable levels based on my calculations under future 7-year design horizon conditions. So you had your own consultant BSC group review that study. I think if you've had a chance to review their comments, they pretty much concurred with everything that I've done in my study. The biggest thing that they've commented on is to include the intersection of Medway Street, Route 109 with Beaver Street in that study, which I've actually done. We've collected traffic counts since that time, and I've put together a response letter that includes all of the counts that we've collected, the analysis that we've done, all of the backup information, and supplies you with the results of that study. So if you like... I haven't. I literally finished it tonight.
So you're going to send it to
I'm going to send it then, absolutely. Would you like me to submit it to you tonight, or?
If you have copies, then
I have one copy.
we can make more, so.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So,
Was there any, just returning to our consultant's review, was there anything in terms of his recommendations which you don't concur?
no. I should point out his recommendations pertained mostly to traffic, but also some site-related issues. The site-related issues will be addressed by Mark Allen.
Okay.
So those have not been addressed in this letter. I don't want to speak for Mark and what his responses to those will be,
Okay.
But he's going to submit those in a separate document. Sure. But no, essentially what we've done is we've expanded the study essentially to include that intersection. And what the results of that show is that the project has very little impact to the operation at that location. I mean, we're talking about overall like 1 to 3 seconds increase in delay overall as a result of this project. The other thing he noted is that there's a slight discrepancy in the number of units that were evaluated in the traffic study versus what's shown on the site plan.
Right.
At the time I prepared the study, we had, the plan showed 159 units. That's what the study was based on. It's currently 162 units. Using the same trip rates that I've included in the study would mean an increase of 1 to 2 peak hour cars if you go to 162 units. I should point out though that since the study was done, the ITE trip generation manual, if you're familiar with that document, that's the basis for estimating traffic for a variety of different land uses. And they've since come out with a new edition of the manual. And if you apply 162 apartment units to that manual, you actually come out with quite a bit less traffic than what I've used in the study. And the reason for that is as time goes on and they do more studies at apartment buildings and count how much traffic there is. As time goes on, you have a lot more people who change their commuting patterns to occur outside the peak hours. You have a lot more people that work from home, and that's, I believe, why those numbers have probably come down. So, if we use the current information, we would actually have less traffic, even at 162 units, than what's assumed in the study. And then the final comment that he had regarding traffic is on the pedestrian phase at Medway and Birch Street and whether or not we're changing that. My response to that is when we make the signal timing changes at that intersection, we're also going to update the pedestrian clearance times to current standards, and we're also going to change or update the signal clearance, the vehicle clearance times, the yellow and all red times, again, to make them consistent with current standards. Generally speaking, older signals have very low clearance intervals that can lead to accidents. So the newer standards increase those times to try to minimize accident incidents. That is, in a nutshell, it.
So if we can summarize then, what you've said is that the first thing is the signals at Birch Street and Medway Road will be organized in a manner that will allow more time to make an even flow of traffic.
Correct.
All right, and okay. And the other thing you talked about was that the intersection of Birch Street and Beaver Street, the Birch Street will be widened in order to allow better egress for the left and the right going onto Beaver Street.
Correct.
Correct? And I think that was most of what was said, and those are the key issues from the study that we saw. The other thing in this latest letter from the Milford Fire Department, he said here, depending on how, let me see, he talked about there might be needing lights at the station in order to, because of the increased traffic, to make sure that the fire trucks will have the ability to get out of there timely. Have you looked at any of that and how that would play out?
I have not. I actually haven't seen the fire department letter.
Okay, so that's something that, okay, will have to be addressed, but, okay, does any board members have questions? Mark?
Unless I missed it, did you do any studies about the backup of the light coming off Birch onto 109?
We're not expecting there to be a significant backup.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is if the fire department's got to get by and we got cars backed up there, then it could be an issue. But you've got the study on the green light, taking the left turn, giving it more time to get onto Birch. But is there any study about significant backup, which I don't think there will be, to be honest with you, but
Yeah, no.
there's nothing there regarding coming off Birch onto 109,
We're
left or right?
We're literally projecting an increase of maybe one car in a queue
Okay,
at that intersection on that approach.
okay.
Any other member wish to be heard on that? Okay. And of course, as you said, your site man is going to talk about the sidewalks, the bus shelter, and the placement of the on the plan, supposedly, of the emergency exit with the fire department? Okay, great.
Thank you, Ron. Mark Allen with Allen Engineering, for the record. In going through the BSC traffic letter, as Ron indicated, some of the comments that came up were site plan related. The first being item number 5 is just being the site triangles for the Birch Street intersection. That's something that is easily added to the plans prior to conclusion of the hearing. It's basically just showing the physical distance from our new intersection at Birch Street, the site distance leaving the site and entering the site. Very, very easy to do. We do meet it. It's in the report. It's just a matter of putting it on the plan for you. One of the other items is that the emergency access, as mentioned, has been discussed not only at this board but through all the various town agencies. Kevin did meet with the planning board earlier this week to discuss that emergency access, and we've come up with a joint resolution that the emergency access is going to be through
Excuse
the
me
burn
for a
tower.
minute. Can you just push that back a little bit so some of the people in the audience can also see what you're dealing with? Yeah. And twist it a little bit. Okay. And feel free over there, if you want to see anything, move over, okay? So don't be afraid to come over. Yeah.
So the easement that has been granted to the property through the fire department parcel skirts the nearby wetland resource here to the south, and the connection would require significant grading and possible alteration to that wetland resource area. So upon site inspection and talks with the fire department for an emergency access, it makes far more sense to do it about 200 feet north of that wetland behind the burn tower area. And that's where the emergency access will be. It will be gated for specific emergency vehicles only, not for through traffic at that location. It will be gated, yes. Yep.
One question, as you said, you met with the planning board, correct?
Correct.
Did you meet with the fire department?
Did we meet with the fire department?
When we were in our work studies with the town planner and town engineer, they had sent out requests for information from the fire department a bunch of months ago, and all the other agencies.
But you, as a group, did not have a specific meeting sit down with the fire department? Okay, thank you.
And Mark, I'm not gonna say he misspoke, but on the emergency access, that all came through the town planner, town engineer, and planning board.
Thank you.
That being said, Jerry, did you get the letter from the planning board? I know you got a letter from the fire chief.
Yeah, we got it all. Yeah, and the only reason I'm asking the question is because of the letter we received this evening from the fire chief. So I just wanted to make sure that there's going to be a clearing of that issue between your group and the fire chief.
Does the chief, does the fire chief know what you just talked about in terms of the emergency access? Is he, okay. Okay.
Excuse me, that, what we're looking at is that's the back of the station, correct?
Correct. So the station is along Birch Street itself.
Yep.
And then the burn tower is to the rear.
And that'll be the access through there.
Correct. And
Are
then
they going to be
through
able to get their apparatus around the building?
Oh, absolutely.
So they can swing out of the garage, get around the building and come to the emergency access?
That'll be up to the chief. Yeah.
It's possible. Okay, so you can get the ladder out if you have to and make that turn? Or do you need some sort of modification for it? With the new truck?
It's not something we're going to use unless it's an absolute last resort.
Well, resorts happen. So if the modifications need to be made, then Mr. Lobosar?
Yeah, whatever the chief says he needs for a whip, it'll be done.
It's good enough for me. Yes, yes. So make sure when you're coming out this way, then you go to the back of the building, that you can get there when you have to get there.
Sorry, Chief, we didn't see you there. That's okay. Just one question with the letter you wrote this afternoon. Thank you very much for responding to us on that. Do you see solutions by working with them with what you wrote in that particular letter?
Yeah, my point with the lights was that's been a previous topic several times at selectmen's meetings where they've talked about the potential of putting lights in there due to the difficulty, especially in the morning. I mean, the volume of traffic heading up the waters and up to the industrial park is substantial. So it's all window is added to it. Yeah, the other issues were just points of information for you people, just that back in the day when we built the building, we were out burning out there, and it really didn't matter where our slope went. Now, with the condos next to us and now this development behind us, we may, choke off that third building where we can't use it.
Okay.
With that intent, at the outset and through the working sessions with the planner and the engineer, that did come up, and we made sure that our buildings are no closer to that burn tower than the Birch Hill condominiums. So their closest building is closer than our closest building to that burn tower. So this is not creating an undue hazard as far as neighboring to the burn tower. Other items as far as traffic, if we can just kind of push along through the traffic. The next item was the sidewalk along the site driveway. Based on our survey, the actually edge of the right-of-way sits almost directly on top of the edge of the traveled way. So adding a sidewalk along that stretch, we can do at least on our portion of the property, and it will be private property. But if a sidewalk is wanted, it would have to be in conjunction with Birch's Automotive, the fire department, and any other privately owned land as you head north towards Route 109. But we can certainly provide it along our frontage, and we have no problem doing that. Yeah, and there are significant wetlands and the bridge crossing to contend with, so we wanted to address it tonight, that we could provide it without any negative environmental impacts on our side. The signage plans, we've highlighted the types of signage that we need through Ron Mueller's office and my office. We've shown the one-way exits, the do not enters. Again, these are preliminary level drawings, and prior to issuance of a permit, then, that'd be a condition that we would be obliged to hold to as far as exact locations of every single sign on the project. But similar to how Ron indicated the signal timing and the road widening of Birch Street down by Beaver Street, these are all items that we're looking to get conditionally approved from this board. We know that this isn't the last hurdle by any means. We still need to go through Mass EPA, we still need to go through NIPDES, we still need to go to Concom, we still need to go to DEP. So there are a number of hurdles after this hurdle to get through, and we know that. But as long as we get, approvals of 162 units with a certain number of parking spaces, with a certain number of bedroom mix, with a certain number of affordability, that's what, we're pushing through for this board as its permitting authority. A couple of the other items that they mentioned was just a detail at the Birch Street intersection where the bus stop is. Again, that's something we could add to the plans prior to building. And one of the items he asked about was the length and width of the parallel parking stalls. They're 10 by 20, which are standard for parallel parking. Other items that I'd just like to talk about, I know we're trying to focus more on traffic tonight, but we were in recent receipt of Matt's CEI letter. We've had some time to digest it a little bit here over the last couple of hours. And like I mentioned earlier, Matt adequately states the fact that this is not the last stop for us prior to putting a shovel in the ground or asking for a building permit. We do need a 401 water quality certification. We need to get a DEP approval. We need to get a Milford Conservation Commission approval. Through the comprehensive permit process, if you have property that's within a resource area or within 100 feet of a resource area, any applicant is not allowed to bypass the local conservation bylaw and state bylaw and federal laws as far as wetland resource areas. So I'm not sure about the other two that are in town, if they have that stipulation on their projects, but we do, and we know that. And that's the law. So knowing that moving forward, that would be like asking for a steel design on one of the buildings. It's a preliminary building layout now prior to issuance of your permit. So we know we need to check those boxes, and like Matt adequately stated, those are the boxes that we fully intend to check. One of the things that we did provide at this earlier level is a full hydrology analysis, 482-page hydrology analysis, where we put out detailed calculations that we're going to submit to the Concom and DEP. And we went through all the stormwater management regulations, all of the hydrology calculations, every storm event from the 2-year to the 100-year storm event. So Matt had asked us for that prior to coming tonight. So we did provide that ahead of our notice of intent, but that's something that we're going to be working with. And I don't know if Matt's company follows the process through Milford Concom, but all of the items tabulated in his report will be addressed through Conservation, DEP, MEPA, and Army Corps of Engineers. Thanks.
I have a question regarding traffic, once again. We have 162 units. Are we allocating 2 parking spaces per unit? Yes. Okay, 300 plus cars. Morning rush hour, going to work Monday through Friday. Coming on to Route 109 from Birch Street. Let's assume only 150 cars are going to work. 75 cars are going to Beaver Street. 75 cars are coming to 109. The math doesn't work where there's only a 1-car backup.
This kind of goes along what I was saying earlier, that you can't take whatever it is, 324 parking spaces and assume that you're going to have 324 trips during the peak
No, I
hours.
broke that down to 150. Then I sent 75 of them to Beaver Street. So that leaves 75 coming to Route 109. Let's say there's only 50 coming at the same time. Let's say there's only 25 coming at the same time. That leaves more than 1 car backed up.
Well,
I know he's out. I guess the question I'm asking, in the event as this progresses and if it's approved and if everything's working, there's an issue regarding the backup and people trying to sneak out onto 109, you know what's going to happen. You know they fly by there in the morning and people are gonna try to take the right turn onto 109. Accidents are gonna happen, we know that. They happen anyway. But are you gonna be able to make the modifications to correct the issue if there is a backup there? You're on getting at here?
You're talking about 109 and...
Going on to 109
Birch.
from Birch.
From Birch, right,
From
exactly.
Birch.
I mean, you have a two-lane approach there today. You have a
Yes.
separate left and right turn lanes. And based, like I said, based on our calculations, going into a 7-year design horizon, adding traffic from 5 other development projects that are known to be occurring in the area, and that included the Stop and Shop, full build out of the Stop and Shop project, for example, that we did not project any issues with that movement. It operates at a level D, which is certainly an acceptable level. You have queues of 3 to 4 cars at most, and that's under build conditions. That's assuming this project is fully built out. So no, I don't suspect that there's going to be an issue with that.
Okay, on the suspicion.
When we change the signal timing to do that,
That'll be to benefit Route 109, not Birch Street.
it will benefit. Well, keep in mind, there's only so much green time available, right?
Right.
At a light, so you can steal from Harrod and pay for Paul, but what not?
Yeah, it's
doing-
going to affect something.
Exactly, it's going to affect something. What it's going to affect, though, is Route 109 through traffic. We're not going to take away any green time from Birch.
No, I didn't expect you to take away. I was wondering if you can add.
Oh, we can certainly take a look at that, yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Okay.
If necessary, during peak times, not Saturdays, Sundays, not evenings, from 7 a.m. to maybe 9 a.m., can you add to that lighting system to allow an extra 10, 15 seconds, which is, believe it or not, a long time to move cars
For a
around,
long time, yeah.
to allow, if in the event that modification needs to be made?
We can certainly do that. I mean, absolutely.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay,
Because
sure.
nobody can predict what's going to happen. You know, all the cars might go to Beaver Street. You might have to make modifications down there. Who knows? But
No, once-
you know what, getting on 109, I for one, hate to travel that road.
Yeah.
It makes me crazy. But the bottom line is, it's a busy road.
Right.
So,
No, we can definitely do that, absolutely.
okay.
That is correct. That's a very good point, exactly.
Okay. We have some documents here, so I just want to clarify something. Ron, the latest document that we got a copy of is your update of your information with the new specs from the state?
It's addressing BSC's comments.
Yeah, okay. So that's an update of this study that I have here.
That's
and
correct.
brings us up to date.
Yep.
It significantly doesn't change anything that we've already heard from you or discussed with you, right?
It does not.
Okay, good. On the other hand, Matt, as people might know, Matt is the engineer and comes from Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated, and they're the people that we have selected to be in our corner to do the peer review. Now, Matt, we just received your final report this evening, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're going to have to review that, and I think it's, like I say, it wouldn't be wise to have the board try to comment on it, but I'd like to just understand a couple things. You have definitely gone over this with these people here, the applicant?
Yeah. So, like Mark said earlier, he submitted a hydrology report and calculation, and it basically is everything that we would normally look for in a technical report. Obviously, we had some comments, but yeah, at this stage, I believe Mark has submitted essentially everything that we would normally ask for in a site plan review. So,
Okay, so if I get you clearly, because I'm having a little time hearing you, is that specifically you believe now that what's required from the site review and so forth that you've discussed with them, that you feel that will be forthcoming from them.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is my letter that I submitted tonight
Right.
is complete for my role.
Okay.
But minus like some of the issues with the, like for example, things that may change in the future, the emergency access to the site that wasn't included in the drainage report. So things like that may need some tweaking
Okay.
eventually.
All right. But there's no big outstanding issues that you would like to advise us on to?
Well, I have some bigger comments that maybe we could discuss tonight. I don't know if we're having an additional hearing on the site plan, but
Yeah, okay.
you want me-
Well, I think you got a point there. We're going to have the meeting that's coming up on the June 21st, which is the overall site. Do you feel that's an appropriate time to bring this matter to a head and look at it?
Yeah, and that will give the applicant more time to.
And us
Yeah, exactly.
to take a look at it. Okay. Now, anything more, Mr. Lobiser, from your group at this point?
A point of clarification, if I could reach out with Matt between now and the 21st on a one-on-one basis as opposed to having to meet at town hall, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
Okay,
That,
great.
yeah, this is something where we believe that, given your past cooperation with the town departments, that this is just going to be a continuing effort, and we just need to dot the i's and cross the t's with these reports, so at least we know what we're doing at the time we come to make a decision on this situation. Okay, that's it from your side. Now, to the audience, would anybody like to add? Mr. Visconti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for asking the same question. Have you filed for a waiver from the three-bedroom requirement? And if not, can you tell us why you have not?
No one, to my knowledge, has filed for a waiver. There's no, Mike, there's no process in the law that's set up to have a specific waiver. I have spoken to the department about whether or not there was any circumstance they could allow basically exemption from that letter requirement for the 10% three bedrooms. And they said, look, you can apply for it, but the person made it quite clear it's highly, highly unlikely. The only times they've done that is for over 55 complex, where obviously over 55 housing is going to have need for three bedroom. But according to the person I spoke to, the main purpose of the letter and the requirement is to get three bedrooms in there. And again, it was indicated we can certainly ask, but not likely to be granted.
The three-bedroom requirement does not apply to over 55 developments. Maybe I misunderstood. In any case, according to the interagency agreement signed January 17, please don't hold me to January 17. It might have been January 15. January 17, 2014, there are provisions to file for a waiver from the three-bedroom requirement. And I would highly suggest that just because the chances are not good that we would get it, I highly suggest that we try. It's very important as it relates to traffic. The more bedrooms you have, the more people you have, the more cars you have, the more traffic you have, the more mess you're going to have at those intersections that were discussed tonight. Please apply for that waiver. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else from the audience? Sure. Your name, sir?
Lou Fortin, 2 Lombardi Circle. We are in the building that's close, about as close as we can to the complex, the development. And the current blasting that's going on seems to be getting worse. Now, we're outside the 250 feet perimeter, so there's no specific precautions being taken, I guess. But once we get inside the development, are you expecting a lot more blasting? You know? Yeah. Right now, we've had some serious blasting going on, and it's shaking the building, and the chandeliers are swaying. And once we get inside that 250 feet, we're anticipating some issues. Now, I guess you do some preliminary checking of all the buildings that are within that? So you're going to be doing that for sure? Okay. Will that include the whole complex? Because from what we're feeling now outside the 250, you get any close to the line, it's going to really affect the whole complex, I would guess.
Since the last meeting, we actually reached out to the developer that is doing the blasting, and they do have us on an automatic email letting us know whenever they do blast so that we know what the seismic reports are coming in. I know the chief gets it as well. So we've been creating a binder for that just so we can pay attention to what's happening because we know these questions are coming with our butters for ourselves. The max, I believe they haven't gone over 15% of what they're allowed. So believe it or not, the blasting that's happening on the industrial side is very light. I know it doesn't it's very light.
I tell you, when you're outside, you don't really feel much. But when you're in the house,
Last meeting, I was concerned about that. We reached out to them and we've been getting the reports and they literally are averaging between 9 and around 13% of what's allowed in Massachusetts for their blast.
yeah, there's been some pretty loud and strong blasts here lately.
Chief, do you have anything to add for this gentleman?
They have been, we have a firefighter on scene for every blast. And we're feeling him like you are at the station,
sure,
which is new for us. We're not used to that aspect of it. But it catches you by surprise because you're far enough away that you don't hear the warning horns. But all of the readings are well within the state limits. It's more of I think, a sensory thing to us. It's,
Yeah.
it seems like a lot, but it really isn't seismically.
Yeah, but once the blasting gets closer to us, it's going to feel a lot worse. Or
They're eventually going to come down. It could feel worse. It may not. It depends on how the ground is, how the veins and the granite run. Within 250 feet, they're required by law to give you a pre-blast survey. Beyond 250 feet, that's up for debate. You can have one, but you may have to pay for it yourself. I don't know whether you had asked earlier if they do the whole complex. I don't know, because the back side of the complex really isn't that close.
yeah, okay.
But yeah, it's going to be a long summer for both of us.
Yeah. I don't think I want to know beforehand when the blast is coming because just waiting for it to happen is worse than having it happen by surprise.
What we found in smaller areas is they would do an email out a couple of hours before and say, we're going to blast at 11 o'clock. Where this size, we've got complaints from 360 degrees on this area that they're blasting. Yeah. So it would, another option is that if you're going to blast that day, you blast at 12 o'clock. That way everybody knows to expect, a blast. That it may lessen the impact, if you will, but if you know it's coming. But I mean, it catches me by surprise at my desk.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I would have no problem doing that, by the way. If your association decided that they'd be more comfortable with it being at a certain couple of times, I would absolutely work with the blasters. And as you can imagine, I would prefer that we don't have to blast, and I wish it was all sand and gravel. So.
Yeah, well, right now I agree with you.
But I mean, I would certainly talk to them.
Okay, I'll talk to the rest of the board and see what we want done and get back to you. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, ma'am? Sure, come on up and give us your name and use the microphone so you can make your point clearly to everybody. Oh, well, okay, we're in trouble.
I just wanted to make a comment. I do feel the blasting as well. We live over by Mount Pleasant, Woodland Ave area, and shocked me last week. I didn't know what was going on because I didn't even realize that was happening. So yeah, if you did it like at a certain time,
I'd just like to say, Mr. Lewis is very good with the residents and the surrounding residents. I would suggest giving him your email or your phone. He can text you or email when the blast will be occurring ahead of time. And anybody else interested in that, that's probably the best way to go, so everyone's going to say, oh my God, what happened? Before the poor chief keeps getting called that we're having earthquakes. So. Yeah.
All right. Any board member on this side? Okay. Well, I think the next thing we want to do, our next meeting is going to be initially talking about the site, but I think we also want to revisit any of the remaining issues on water or sewerage. We'd like to get to the point where we can start to wrap it up at that particular time. Now, what we have done with the other 40Bs is we've set up a working meeting to take a look at the last documents that from CEI that we have there, and that will include myself and Jerry and whoever you want to send, Mr. Lobiser, to that meeting, so that we can have a working meeting that will make the board more efficient in what we're doing. We do have a suggested date for you, and let's see what we can find here. He's giving me a hard time with my phone. He's got
Sitting here waiting, you know.
Yeah, well, hey, it's important that you wait for us. So what day are you looking at?
Well, if we can do it next week, we could do the 13th or 14th. I could.
Yeah, the 13th's fine with me.
Is that what you folks say, at 3 o'clock on the 13th? I could. Can you, John?
Well, yes, we could do it so long as I can get to the 7 o'clock regular zoning board meeting that's occurring that day. Yeah, I'm going to be looking for a new wife pretty soon, you know? Say that again, ma'am, I can't hear. The next meeting that is an important meeting will be the one that we've set up on Thursday, June 21st, and that will be up here at 7 o'clock. So that's going to be kind of like a meeting where we're going to try to corral everything, and we'll have done our working meeting before that. So we're hoping that we'll have a good clarification of what we want to try to decide at that meeting. Okay?
See if we can have Dave Condrey here for that meeting.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll also have Jerry, Mr. Moody, our counsel, makes a good point. Dave Condrey from the water company, we'll ask him to be at that meeting also. So if you have any questions, feel free that you can come, relax, and ask your questions, okay? What's that? I'm sorry, my hearing. Oh, yes, it is, yeah. Yeah, it should be. That was a good meeting. I can imagine you thought that. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yes, sir.
What time on the 14th? 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. No, in room 14 here at the town hall.
June 14th at
Liz, if you could let Liz know that tomorrow.
3 o'clock in room 14. That's pretty good. I can remember that. I won't have to put it on my phone. Yeah, hey, look, hey. Then I'll put it on my phone later so my wife can see it. Thank you. That's true. Okay, I think at this point, I'd like to make a motion.
Need a motion to adjourn until the 21st, this location at 7 o'clock.
Okay. I'm making a motion that we adjourn this meeting to the 20th first.
21st, right?
Yeah.
We have so many of these. 21st.
Yeah. So, again, I make a motion that we close this meeting and adjourn it and to the next meeting on June 21st at 7 o'clock. All those approve? Fine. And just bear witness with us that we have 3 of these going on at the same time. So if we look a little confused, we are, in trying to keep everything straight. Thank you for your patience, and good night. Huh?